Welcome to another episode of Growth Hacker TV. I'm Bronson Taylor, and today I have Andrew Dumont with us. Andrew, thanks for coming on the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Andrew, you are the Director of Business Development at Moz, formerly SEO Moz, and you're also the co-founder of Stride. And before that, you spent some time at Seismic, Tatango, and I'm sure a few other places. Does that all sound about right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and it seems like at each of those places, at least the last few, you've really been focused on growth. And as I kind of looked at some of your stuff that you put out online, you have this amazing list of 21 tactics that I came across of some of the things that you've done personally, others that you've seen other companies do that kind of inspired you, but they're all tactics for customer acquisition. So what I want to do is I just want to dig into those 21 things that revolve around customer acquisition, because if you ask any company, hey, do you want to acquire more customers? Their answer is probably yes.
Absolutely.
So, let's just give the people what they want. They want customers, let's give them customers. All right, Andrew?
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right, so let's start at the top here. Tactic number one, FAQ for the long tail. So what does that mean?
Yeah, well, so being at Moz and formerly SEO Moz, SEO is obviously a topic that we think a lot about. And a lot of people, they have these help forums online, or they're thinking about doing these help forums, and they think about it purely from will this help me with support? And the answer oftentimes is yes, it will. But there's also a lot of SEO value to your help forum. And I think, Neil Patel, who's a good buddy of mine, he does a great job of it with Crazy Egg. So a lot of his topics that he has on his FAQ forum are actually geared towards people that could be searching things that are further along in the buying process, or at least that mental state. So he actually uses a lot of the URL structures to kind of target those queries. So those are all what we consider long tail queries, not your kind of standard keywords that you target for. So your FAQ forum is a great way to kind of target those long tail queries, and make sure that you have good calls to action and to view plans and pricing, which Neil does a great job of. So yeah, the FAQ is something that people don't really utilize too much for customer acquisition, but it's actually a really, really powerful tool, and I've seen that with Stride and at Moz as well.
Yeah, and you said even putting call to action on there. So you mean on the FAQ, actually have a, sign up here, get a free trial here, and don't leave those things off of it just because it's an FAQ.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people, like I said, when they're looking for things like, let's use Crazy Egg as an example. If people are looking for, how can I optimize my website using confetti mapping or whatever it may be, right? Like those things, those are people that are looking for a service like that, right? So making sure that when they visit that page, they have the option to sign up and check out, your product to help with that. It's something people don't think about too much.
Yeah, and one of the things to kind of reverse engineer it is if you're writing your FAQ, think about what kinds of questions you might type into Google if you were in search of a product like Crazy Egg or whatever.
Yeah.
And then kind of reverse engineer from there, then come up with questions you can answer that'll be chocked with those keywords, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, I think a big piece of that too is making sure you use the right platform as well. I think at Stride we use user voice. I think Neil actually, his is kind of a homebrewed solution, but make sure that they allow you to customize the URL structure and add a meta description and title tag and that sort of stuff. Most do, but yeah, that's important when looking at the platform.
Yeah, let me ask you this, kind of big picture with growth, because you've seen the numbers behind the scenes at Moz, you've seen the numbers behind the scenes at Stride, and the more companies you see behind the scenes of, the better you just have a grasp on how growth actually works. Does long tail really matter? Is it that the long tail is just a few percentage points of growth, or are we talking substantial enough here to move the needle?
No, it's substantial. If you look at it on pure traffic, so I think a reason why a lot of people kind of discredit long tail is because it's a smaller number, right? Mm-hmm. Your large keywords are obviously going to get more traffic, but the thing that people don't realize about long tail stuff is it's actually much higher quality in a lot of cases. The further your query gets, the further along that person is along down the buying process, right? So it's a way of kind of qualifying customers a little bit more. Okay. So yes, it's very significant. And at Moz, I know it's something that we see a lot of growth from, and we actually target a lot, with our product.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that they're further along the buying process. We're going to interview the managing editor of Huffington Post here in a couple days. And I was doing some research on their site. I went to their Alexa page just to kind of see where their traffic is coming from. and they get like 1% of their traffic, which is pretty huge, from the word Miley Cyrus, right?
See, there it is.
So,
that's long tail right there.
That's long tail, so you're right. It's pretty crazy. All right, the second thing is manual outreach to the first customers. Break that down for us. What do you mean there?
Yeah. So I know at Stride when we initially launched, right, your initial customers are the ones that are going to help provide word of mouth and help you basically vet and mature your product to a point where it's ready for a larger customer base, right? So I know initially at Stride when we got our first, I think, 100 customers, we reached out to each one individually. And I'm not talking about like a canned response email. I'm talking about like actually researching into who the person is, what they do, how they could potentially be using Stride, and then reach out to them and ask for their feedback, ask if there's things that we can help with. Just getting that personal touch with the first 100 customers goes a really, really long way. And that's great, if your product is really, really small. But I was using MailChimp a few months back, and they do a great job of doing this kind of on a larger scale. So when you send a campaign, I got this email newsletter that said, claim your free gift. And MailChimp has thousands and thousands of subscribers, and it struck me as like very personal, and something that they're doing to go the extra mile to make sure that their customers are happy, even if it can't be a manual outreach. So things like that, where you're optimizing for the happiness of your current customers, is something that a lot of people don't really focus on. They focus on growth as acquiring new customers and not necessarily keeping current customers really, really happy.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important.
No, that's a great point. And the first 100 customers, they're important in ways that people don't realize, because they're going to set the tone for everything else after them. They really are going to decide the style of the community, the culture of the community, the needs of the community, the features the community asks for. Like, they really are going to set, in some senses, the direction of your startup, whether you know it or not. So to cultivate them and become friends with them and do whatever you can to serve them, it's more than marketing. Like, it really is going to be a part of what your startup becomes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually saw a thread on Hacker News today saying that it costs 5 times more to acquire a customer than it does to. I'm not sure if you saw that thread this morning.
No,
but
I didn't.
Very timely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My wife has an MBA, and I remember her learning that in her MBA class, 10 years ago.
Oh, so there you go.
It's a tried and true thing,
There is value to an MBA.
There you go.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah, she has the MBA, but I'm doing Growth Hacker TV, so you can see where they end up.
Yep.
The third thing is partner distributions. And you have an incredible post on this one on the Moz blog, if I'm correct on that. But talk to us about partner distributions and what you guys have experienced there firsthand.
Yeah, so especially for software companies, this works amazingly well. So are you able to link to folks to that blog post that kind of digs into the numbers? Okay, cool. So that post kind of digs into, we've been doing what we call partner distributions for about 2 years now. And so far at Moz, it's accounted for over 10,000 free trials with credit card up front. So it's a huge number. And it's basically, the concept is pretty simple. So it's going to, startup accelerators and other software companies, folks like that, and essentially offering a longer free trial on your product. So, we partner with, the Global Accelerator Network to offer 90 days free of Moz instead of the traditional 30 days. It adds a little bit of extra incentive for people to sign up. And it provides value kind of to the partner to distribute that, to their members and companies in the case of an accelerator. So it's a great, very simple way of getting your product out there and helping other partners and building relationships with other companies. And it's a significant number, and it's so simple. I think the thing is, a lot of people don't really consider it because it's so simple. And there's not enough value necessarily provided back to the partner, which is why. On Moz, we have a page that kind of features some of our partners as well. So we give them some co-marketing love back. So yeah, it's a really powerful channel, and definitely read through that post. I think there's a lot of digging into the numbers in terms of churn and how much it costs to acquire them. I mean, it's a $0 acquisition cost channel at the end of the day, which is amazing to get that many free trials from it.
Seeing the Excel spreadsheet that you have on there, that was actually, I think, one of the most important things about the post. Because I was able to look at my own numbers and compare it to Moz, which is hard to do. A lot of people don't expose their numbers like that. So I was able to be like, all right, like I see kind of how we're tracking alongside a company I respect. And one of the things that you address in that is people asked, is the churn higher because they're getting this long trial? Are they just looking for freebies? Do they cancel before their credit card gets hit? And the answer was no. Their churn was actually better, if I remember correctly.
Well, the answer was initially the churn is higher, right? So the first 1 or 2 months of being a paying subscriber are higher, and I think a lot of that is to do with fraudulent cards and that sort of stuff, which naturally get churned out over time. But after that initial period of the first 2 months, 3 months, it trends very nicely with the organic free trials, which tend to hold on pretty well. So yeah.
No, that's great. Another thing you do is you track competitor mentions. What tools do you use to do that, and then what do you do with that information?
Yeah, not to dog food too much.
That's all right. That's why we have you on.
So be it. So we launched this product called Fresh Web Explorer, and a lot of it I use it to not only track competitor mentions. So and this is the same function as Google Alerts or tools like that. Yeah. So basically, I'm just looking at things like where are my competitors mentioned, and when they are mentioned, typically it's a post about in Stride's case, a simple CRM product or something like that, right? When oftentimes it would be valuable for me to, alert that editor or that writer or add something in the comments about, Stride, what we were working on. So it's a good way to find where competitors are being mentioned, as well as like topic specific stuff, right? I want to know whenever there's a new blog post about a simple CRM or customer tracking or whatever it may be, right? Like those are all topics that I'm interested in that are all very good opportunities for you to reach out to the editor and try to get a similar news article on your product specifically. So yeah, it's just a way of kind of like making the web smaller, right? Knowing when things happen.
And sometimes it's easier to piggyback on an existing conversation than trying to create one from nothing. It's hard to get a journalist to write about you, but if they're already written about your industry and you have something of value to add, it's not that far of a stretch for them to go ahead and say something else. So that's just something for people to keep in mind. Your fifth one here is the Double Loop Referral Program, obviously made incredibly famous by Dropbox. Let me ask you, I've heard people say, oh, we should do those. Other people say it only works for Dropbox and you're not them. Well, where do you land on that? Well,
so I land in it is a good growth tactic for people to try out and test. It's going to vary a lot by the company, and obviously Dropbox works really well, right? Because it's a consumer product and it's storage. Everybody wants more storage, right? Like it's something very natural to their product. At Moz, we do something similar, but it's not quite as successful, but it's a significant channel for us. So basically what we do is if you refer somebody to Moz, then we give you a discount on your subscription, and that discount gets larger and larger the more people that you refer. So it's a significant channel. It's not huge, but I think it's just something people shouldn't discredit it. It works.
And a lot of times growth is, you're going to have a few channels maybe that bring in the lion's share, but then, 20% can be made up of 50 different things.
Right, exactly.
And so,
right.
You can't ignore all these little bitty things, especially if you can implement them once and they are kind of evergreen. They're always going to be bringing and doing in what they do. What's it hurt to spend a couple days in development, put them into place, and then they're just there as a part of your arsenal? Everything doesn't have to be an absolute game changer, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's all this kind of flywheel approach, right? It's a slow building thing that as you keep adding more and more tactics to it, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So the number gets larger and larger and larger, right? Like you said, there's only, there's only 3 or 4 channels. Most likely it's the 80-20 rule that, do a lot of the growth for you. But those smaller ancillary channels are actually really, really important.
Yeah. Now this next tactic I like a lot, not because people don't know about it, but because they don't do it.
Yeah,
which
right.
is help a reporter out. How do people use that? How should they use that?
Well, it's less good now. I know that's not very. The more people started to know about Haro, and it's become less, lower quality than it once was back in the day. But so what I've done actually with my Haro is because I think you get like 3 or 4 a day, something crazy like that, and we all know that we don't have enough time in the day to go through 3 or 4 emails with these tons of prompts. So what I've done actually is I've used Gmail filters to filter out these new Haro emails based on mentioning of certain keywords that I want. So that's a good way to kind of sift down your Haro emails to just the things that are actionable to you or the topics that you could add value to. But it's a great tactic. Yeah, I mean, that's how I got that article in the Wall Street Journal. There's countless others of things like that have come from Haro. So it's still a good channel. It's not as good as it once was, but if you can filter it out and kind of pick and choose the ones you want to respond to, the better off you'll be.
Yeah, no, that's great insight into how to use it effectively. Your seventh thing here is having a verified program. And a lot of times when I think of verified programs, I think about Twitter, you're a verified user. I think of these huge monster companies, and I don't even think it's a strategy like for us. So how would somebody use a verified program?
Yeah, well, I mean, it has to be exclusive, right, for it to be valuable. And I think the big value here is the SEO value, to be honest with you. And I'm not sure if that's what Twitter is going for. I doubt it. But I think, when you get to, companies the size of Moz and smaller, you need to find ways to get good links back to you and get your brand exposed to a lot of people. So for us, we do a similar verified program with our recommended companies list. Which are just consultants that we think are good, that we endorse as Moz, which, I think for a company that's on that list, it's pretty valuable for them to have that stamp of approval from us. So, there needs to be good reason for people to want to, embed a badge or anything like that. But it's something worth exploring. I think the key to it is making it exclusive and making it valuable. People aren't just going to put a badge on their site for something that doesn't mean anything. Yeah,
absolutely. I've actually played around with that idea for Growth Hacker TV, and I don't know if we'll do it or not. But having a page of like, hey, here's some verified partners, some agencies that we trust to do growth hacking if you're looking to outsource some of it. And then they have badges on their site. We display them prominently on our site to give them traffic and new clients. Then I can imagine a scenario there where it's kind of a win-win. I don't know if we'll do it, but it's somewhere like it's one of those mini long tail things.
It's a small thing. Yeah, like you're not gonna put that up and see, oh my gosh, my company grew 100%. This is not gonna happen.
Exactly, And that's the thing too is that if you were to look at my to-do list right now, I have so many possible growth hacks, and I know they'll each bring in a few accounts. Like I know that I can do them all. I don't think none of them will fail totally, but none of them are going to be like huge successes. And really, it's just a matter of time. There's not enough hours in the day to do everything. So you just have your list, you work through it, you add to your arsenal, and then 3 years goes by, and all of a sudden you've built a pretty hefty machine, one day at a time.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
So the next one here is social prospecting. Is that just kind of looking at Twitter, seeing what people are mentioning, just old school, looking what's going on in the social networks?
Yeah, and I think the key that people are still actually messing up with this, which is kind of surprising to me. But a lot of people, when somebody mentions, I'll just keep going on Stride because it's simple. Like simple CRM, right? If somebody mentions that on Twitter, a lot of people, they just respond back, hey, check out our site, right? Like that's not the goal of social prospecting. I think the goal is to provide value to them, not necessarily recommend your product. You could recommend your product as well as your competitors, but truly trying to be helpful there. I think is the key to it. Nobody wants to be spammed with links to, promotional links, right? When they mention a certain keyword, it's just, it's not good. So people still mess up on that. But I think it's a good way to kind of, get your brand out there and kind of, evolve your specific industry or function.
Yeah. No, I learned that the hard way a couple products ago. Every time there was a mention, I tried to pitch them a link to our site. Yeah. And then eventually people were replying like, look, we'll find out about you for good.
Right,
calm
exactly.
down.
Exactly right.
So I learned the hard way, like it's not how you go about it. Yeah, that's good. The ninth one is video syndications. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so this one's actually really, really cool. So if you create any video content at all, which this is probably good for you, but you have premium content. Yeah, right. So we actually did something with Udemy, which is kind of an online instructional type community, and they did content on SEO. And we obviously have a lot of that through our Whiteboard Fridays and various other video sorts of content that we produce. So we work with them to basically pull together a course of our top SEO videos and offer it for free on Udemy. Now the value here and the growth hack part of this is that every time somebody signs up to take your course, you then have the ability to message your course attendees, which then can get them into other pieces of your community or point them to your product or whatever it may be. So it's a great way of getting your brand to a much larger audience outside of what you have on your blog, let's say, or website. And it gives you access to all these people, essentially an email it's essentially like building an email list, because these are all people that, you can message them directly, which goes to their email address. So there's a lot of platforms like Udemy. We've seen Udemy to perform the best and get the largest following. But it's a great way to use existing content that you have to grow your audience.
Yeah, it's funny, when I was reading this post, we actually did the exact same thing on Udemy with the exact same success. We went to Udemy, we uploaded 10 free interviews that we wanted their people to have. We got over 1,000 people to enroll in the course, and it's probably even much more now. And you can sort messaging them by when they signed up. So first we message everybody after a week, and then we gave them a discount to Growth Hacker TV, but a timeline on it. Hey, next 48 hours or something, you get, a month free or whatever. And then we go back in a week and we sort it so that we're only looking at the people that have not received an email yet, and we hit them. And so every week we log in and we hit the new people that have signed up.
It's really smart. It's really smart.
I mean, we've gotten, I don't know the exact numbers, I could pull it up in our analytics because we track everything, but I mean, at least 50 new accounts. I mean, it's been a good, kind of source for us. And they're staying around because they were super qualified to find it on Udemy, want that kind of content, and now we're just giving them more of what they already wanted in the first place.
Yeah, and that was really my key with this list, was to find channels that don't cost you any money, right? If I have $0 to market my startup or company, right? You need to find channels like this that, yes, you've already produced this content. Now you just need to find another channel to put it on, right? So yeah, it's a great way to grow your audience without any marketing budget.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of like the foundation of what you're talking about there is important because it's taking what you already have and repurposing it.
Right.
Another thing is, you could take your SEO content, or I could take some of my interviews, have them, put into transcript form, and it becomes a PDF that you can download for an email address. I mean, have somebody on Odesk create a slide share out of it and then upload it. I mean, there's just so many ways you can take something that you've already put a lot of time and resources into and now find new channels for it that are in different mediums maybe.
Absolutely, yeah.
The next one here is comment marketing. Is that using the comments on blogs, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to cover this one too much. I think Rand did a good way, a good job of explaining content marketing and explaining a way to do content marketing where it's not spammy. I'm not a huge fan of comment marketing, to be honest with you, but it's a good tactic that you can implore when you have the right opportunity, right? But
there you go.
When it's a forced thing, it's not good. Yeah. So, anyways, Rand's video is a great source to watch to kind of figure out how to do that.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And the next one is in-app sharing, which I'm a huge fan of. What do you mean by in-app sharing? What's the opportunity that you're taking advantage of there?
Yeah, I mean, you're adding a gamification layer, which I hate that word, but it works.
It's true.
You add a gamification layer to your product, and you make people feel good about achieving certain things within your product, and it gives you an opportunity to help, or it gives you an opportunity to have your users help promote your product. So, for example, in Stride, when a user wins a deal or closes a deal, we then send a notification with some cool phrase like, like always be closing, good job, all that sort of stuff or whatever. But it's a fun way to like adding a little bit of like, personality to your product, as well as, providing a good channel to help, your users promote your product if they so, if they want to. And Foursquare does an amazing job with this, obviously. I think a lot of people don't think about it in the realm of software, but it's very much applicable in software as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, as an example of this, if you're watching this video right now, when you get to the end of this video, it's going to have a pop-up that says, hey, you made it to the end of the video. You obviously enjoyed it. Click here to tweet it. And every day, people are tweeting out videos from all the people they've watched. I mean, if you could just watch our Twitter stream every day, all day, tweets going out, check out this interview, check out that interview, because I added one little button pop-up at the end of watching an episode. It was a simple little thing. And, we get a good bit of traffic from Twitter, and so some of that's going to be because of these tweets that are being shared. So, yeah, I totally agree there. The next one I actually also implement, number 12, win-backs. What's a win-back? I like that word. I've never heard it called that before.
Yeah, that's just what we call it internally. So it's especially true in software as a service type models. So when somebody cancels their account for whatever reason, 60, 90 days after, you basically come back to them with basically like an extended free trial or a discounted account or free for, some sort of discount to them to make them want to come back and try your product again. It may be that you add new features as well, but it's basically using the people that churn out and trying to get them back on. I mean, a lot of people, with software products, once somebody churns, they don't want to be a customer ever again. When a lot of times that's not really the case. Like in the case of Moz, sometimes people cancel just because they don't have enough new client work coming in. They need to cancel, right? That doesn't mean they don't want to be a customer again. And our cancellation surveys very much echo that point as well. So a win back is just an email once people cancel, basically inviting them back to take another look with a discount.
Yeah, and you mentioned the cancellation survey as well. Those are hugely important because it's when they're leaving, if you can get the insight into why, you're going to learn a lot about your product because they already came, they were already converted, they already put a credit card on file, they drank the Kool-Aid, and they needed to leave. So whatever reason they left is going to be a huge insight that's going to help you, close that gap. And that's one of the things we do is as soon as somebody cancels, we send them this really funny email. It's just filled with personality, and it's almost like I'm writing them a personal email because they broke up with me. I'm like, hey, I just came into the office. I'm super bummed. The staff just told me that you canceled. I wasn't really emotionally prepared for it. All I ask is that you give me some kind of feedback to help me improve the product. And I get people all the time emailing me and saying, hey, I'm going to give you insight into what you can do to improve just because your email's so funny. And it makes your company likable. So here's what I would say: try.
Do they say it's not you, it's me?
Yeah, I've got that before too.
Okay,
I've got all kinds of things. And then what's really funny is when people don't catch the sarcasm in it, and they're just like, "Wow, that is really weird that you came into the office and you made this big deal about it." But we'll leave that alone. The next one is the customer thank you cards. And this is one that came on my radar in a new way a couple days ago. But how do you use customer thank you cards?
Yeah, I mean, pretty simple. Like we segment our customers on Stride to the folks that have been around for a while. We don't even segment by how much they're spending with us. I don't know. I think that's kind of inauthentic to just segment it to the people that are paying you a lot of money. But yeah, I mean, literally, I sit down and my girlfriend helps me, thank God, because my handwriting doesn't look anything like what's in that post. And we just, write a quick little note. It doesn't have to be long. Just saying, thank you for being a customer. And what we've seen with tracking those people that we send cards to, they hang around longer. So yeah, it's just a pretty simple, it takes time and it takes effort, but it's a good place to spend your time because it helps with the word of mouth and it helps with retaining customers, which we know is very important. So
totally. And when somebody gets a handwritten note, I mean, no other software company is sending them a handwritten note in the next 5 years. So if you do, you're the one that gets through that channel if they open it. And one thing I saw with this is people actually created kind of an automated system so that when users reach a certain level, like you said you didn't really like, but when they reach a certain level, like they paid us a certain amount or been around a certain number of months, then it automatically sends their information to a VA. And the VA, the virtual assistant, actually writes the note, stamps it, mails it to them from the company. And then it's and then people take pictures of it and post it online. This whole thing. So you could go that far with it if you wanted to.
Yeah, and that's much more scalable, right? Like that works for Stride because we're so small, right? Yeah. But as you get bigger, you need to find ways like that to make it more scalable.
Yeah, and then the number 14 is influencer program. So what do you have going on there?
Yeah, I mean this is pretty common too. Nothing earth-shattering here, but we acquired a company called Follower Wonk last year at Moz, and it allows you to basically search a certain term and then find top influencers in that based on whatever you want to measure. So just finding the people in your space that are influential and important and typically set the trend for new technology and new software. Finding those people and building a relationship with them, and that's really all it is.
Yeah.
We all know how to do that, but I think it's finding the people that is really, really hard, and Follower Wonk can help with that.
And one other side note on Follower Wonk, I don't know if this has always been in there or if you guys added it recently, but the ability to type in 2 Twitter handles and then it shows you the overlap in your followers. Is that new?
No, that's been there for a while.
Okay, I just didn't see it before. That is crazy helpful because I was, thinking, all right, who has the same market as Growth Hacker TV? So I started thinking about people. Is it Andrew Chin? Is it Sean Ellis? Is it somebody else I'm not even thinking of? Yeah. And so I did these, and then I put in us and Andrew Chin. It's like, wow, we have the exact same user base.
Really?
I'm going to start looking at who's following him, and I'm going to be doing something there.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly right. That's exactly right. And it's just getting finding those overlaps and kind of getting creative with because there's a lot of data out there with social following.
It's crazy how much data there is. People don't know.
Yeah, there is. There's a ton.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one is to tap into the viral loop. So what's that?
Yeah, so MailChimp obviously does a great job with this. With every time you send an email, you have the ability to add a monkey rewards badge which says powered by MailChimp.
You get a discount for it or something.
Yeah, right. It's very low friction. People would love getting discounts. So whenever it's natural, I think it's a great channel. Some products it's not natural, like Stride, it's not natural at all.
Yeah.
There's nothing that we do where we can put our brand on it to make it, I don't know, to help grow the product. It just doesn't work, right? MailChimp, it works really good. Moz, it works decently well because people download PDFs to basically show in presentations and that sort of stuff of our data. So things like that. But yeah, just really analyzing your product to see, what channel or what do you have that could potentially be used to help with the viral loop. I don't even know if that's really what it's called. That's kind of just what I call it. But finding a way to, put your brand as a part of your, kind of network as people use your product naturally.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and in some cases it would be technically a viral loop if you get a coefficient above, 1. In other cases, it's just going to amplify your message, which is still good. Now, the next one is guides. And Moz has, the Moz guide to SEO. It's beautifully done and all those things. And you actually released some numbers, I believe, about how well that guide has done in bringing inbound traffic and new signups. How important is that guide for you guys?
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. I can't even explain how huge it is actually. And I was curious of how it would work for a different brand, so I actually did a beginner's guide to sales for Stride, and it's doing just as well too. And I think the traffic aside, the big key to doing guides and the reason for doing guides is, one, you educate potential customers to become better customers, right? So for us, the more somebody knows about SEO, the better a customer they're going to be. And we see that in all of our retention numbers, right? The more people know about SEO, the more value they get out of Moz, right? So it's very crucial for us to be educational to those people. So that's the number one thing. The other thing too is search, right? So we host it on our domain, moz.com/beginner's guide to SEO, right? So every time somebody links to the beginner's guide to SEO, that builds up our domain to have more authority. So when we try to rank for other terms, we show up higher in the search results. So it's this mix of education as well as long tail search stuff, as well as building the authority of your domain from a search engine perspective. So yeah, they're huge. They're really valuable, and we're doing a bunch more. They take a lot of time. They take a lot of resources, but they're totally worth it.
Yeah, no, they do take a lot of time and resources. I wrote the definitive guide to growth hacking with Neil Patel.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, it's 30,000 plus words. I mean, it's a lot of investment. He spent a lot of money on the design of it, but we're both seeing dividends from it. So yeah, guides are great. The next one is OEM deals. What is OEM deals, and then how does it different than partnerships and things like that?
Yeah, well, so I kind of bastardized the word a little bit, but
what does it mean to you?
So a traditional OEM is, I'm a hardware manufacturer, I'm HP, and a software product comes to me with a new calendar app that they think would add a lot more value to my laptop, right? Or I'm Evernote, right? And I go to HP and I say, and actually Evernote's done a great job of doing this. So they basically package that software product alongside that hardware product. So as soon as you get that laptop from HP, Evernote is right there as soon as you get the product, right? So ingraining your product into hardware products as a software company. It's a really, really long-term investment. It takes a ton of time, and a lot of times you'll fail, right? But it's one of those things, I always like, when I think about growth, I think a lot of these smaller, low investment things that I can continually do. And then I always like to have larger, low probability of succeeding type things that take a long time, but just having those things going for 6 months to a year, because every once in a while they actually go through and they work and they're massive. So I think it's a good mix, and OEM is a good way to have those larger scale things in the burner.
Some of the ways that people have put it before on here is you always have kind of your short-term growth strategies, your mid-term, and then your long-term. Long-term, it's a lot of investment. They may not work. It's a crapshoot. The short term, it'll win, but in a small way. And you're always kind of doing all three. And then again, over time, you look back and you've created a really powerful arsenal. Now the next one is product integrations. Is that similar to OEM deals? Is that the same idea, or are you thinking something different?
This is different. Yeah, this is different. So this is actually like integrating your product into other software products. Salesforce is obviously one of the most well known with their App Exchange.
Okay.
Right? It's just a way to obviously get your product more ingrained in the workflow of your customers, but also, every time you do an integration into a Salesforce or a Zendesk, that's an opportunity to do some sort of co-promotion together. Which and actually, thankfully, the guys at Hootsuite gave me some numbers on how new apps within Hootsuite do, and they see anywhere from 100 to 500 installs per day of applications in their app gallery, because it's fairly small still. But so that's a huge channel, right? And if you get 100 installs every single day, some percentage of them actually convert to customers. It's a good growth channel.
Yeah, and just to back up to make sure everybody's clear on what we're talking about, there are these mid-sized companies and larger companies. They have their own app stores. The MailChimps of the world and the Salesforces of the world, and you can be a part of their app store by integrating your product with theirs. So if your product has something to do with email, maybe you can get in the MailChimp store. MailChimp might promote you, and then you're in the store, which is always going to be giving you kind of that evergreen traffic like you're talking about in the installs, and then some percentage of those will upgrade to a paying account. And there's a lot of those app stores popping up. We focus so much on Apple and Google and their app stores that we really miss that app stores are becoming a thing that a lot of companies are doing, and we can really get embedded in those.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thanks for explaining. I know I didn't explain that too well,
but
no,
yeah,
that's
good. And we have a whole episode on this on Growth Hacker TV, and so people can go back in our archives and watch that. I'm trying to think of his name right now, but it's escaping me. But he was from New Relic, so do a search on our site for New Relic, and you'll find a whole hour on someone who just executed this and just killed it. So it's a good strategy. And that's the thing too about all these strategies is, sometimes you'll try them and they'll work or they won't work. But really, if you go deep with any of them, there's someone who's an expert at all these and it just killed it and made a lot of new accounts off of it. So it's really also about how skilled you are with each of these, how much you're willing to invest in them, and those kind of things also. The next one is industry surveys. And I thought this was a cool one because I never really thought about it before. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. I didn't really think about it as a growth. I didn't really think about it as a growth channel initially, but just think about it this way, right? If you become the source for everything related to your industry, right? So for us at Moz, we've done an industry survey for years that basically gives the lay of the land with how much are search marketers getting paid. What are they most concerned about? What are their top tools? All these things, right? All these data points. If you become this source for that information, it's really, really valuable. Then when people think search marketing or online marketing, they think of Moz because of that, right? So it's a tougher thing to grow. It's a tougher thing to measure than most of these other channels. But I think it's one of those long-term investments that takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy, but it's a huge brand building sort of initiative that you can do.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I see companies that do it like Moz. I mean, you guys do it excellently, but I never thought about it as something to imitate. I just thought it was like accidental, it happened over time, but to really think, you can focus on being the front-facing voice of an entire industry, and they come to you for their surveys and their white papers and here's what's new and trends and all that kind of stuff. And if you become a hub of that discussion, then obviously you're going to get the spillover in accounts. All right, we got two more tactics here. This has been awesome. Number 20, rally the troops. All right, how do you rally the troops?
Yeah, so that's really not a very good title for that. But so GNIP did this, which I was actually a huge fan of. They put together this thing called the Big Boulder Initiative, which was a coalition of sorts of people in the social data industry. This is very much along the line of the surveys, but it's finding a cause that you think is important to your industry and being the basically the ringleader behind it. And GNIP's done a great job of this. Now every time I think social data, I think GNIP, right? So it's on a much larger scale much smaller scale than the surveys, let's say, but it's a great way to build your brand in a certain space.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then the last one, number 21, free standalone tools. And this one's gaining some momentum. Some people are really using this one and using it well. What does it mean to produce a free standalone tool?
Yeah, well, Neil is doing an amazing job with it at ClickSprout too. But HubSpot I think is famous for this. Moz is kind of famous for this too. We built tools. So HubSpot built the marketing grader, which you put in your domain, and it sells you all this information. And it also helps lead you into potentially realizing that you need HubSpot. Let's say, right? So it's a very natural way of providing value right away, as well as getting people aware of the value your product provides. And the important part is offering them for free. Actually, a lot of people try to put a paid paid cover over these when that's not the point. The point is to educate people as well as show them value and direct them to your paid products. So they're getting a lot of steam recently.
Yeah, and that's the thing you said at the end about making them free. That's really important because what's really insightful about this is they're producing something that's worth money, but it's free. And that's why they're getting so much traffic. The marketing grader, that's worth something. The stuff that Neil's putting out with, analytics, that's free, like his iPhone app or Google Analytics. It could cost money and somebody would pay it, but by giving away free, you get into a funnel to charge them for a more expensive product down the line. It's just really smart, high-level jiu-jitsu marketing that people aren't, they're not there yet, but it's like you said, it's picking up steam and the smart companies are doing it. Go ahead.
Sorry, and it's realizing what your breadwinner is, right? Like if HubSpot's breadwinner is obviously HubSpot, right? It's not going to be this marketing grader, right? So it's taking a loss on marketing grader in sacrifice for getting people to your breadwinner product.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the word loss there, and this goes back to traditional marketing. Walmart, come Black Friday, will have loss leaders. They'll give you, a 1,000-inch TV for $10 or something, some crazy deal that you can't pass up. But then you get in the store, and they know probably down to a penny, on average, how much more you're going to spend because you went in the store to get the loss leader. So they lost on the leading sale to make it back on you buying a bunch of toilet paper and a bunch of other things that you didn't know you were going to get when you were in there. Same idea. This marketing grader, it's free. You're not making anything. But they know they're going to make it back because their yearly subscription to HubSpot, I think now costs about an arm and a leg. So
yeah, really,
they're going to make it back. Yeah. All right. So this has been awesome. I just have a few kind of final questions here to kind of wrap it up, kind of higher level questions. Moz seems to be on the cutting edge of growth in a lot of different ways. You guys know a lot about SEO, but you know a lot about other stuff too. So I think it's wise that you drop the SEO because you're becoming a leader in growth, just period. What trends or ideas are you all kind of obsessing about right now that you think might be the next big thing in growth, that it has your attention?
Well, so I don't know if this maybe might be a big thing in growth. I mean, I think it's already becoming a big thing in growth. But if you look at the list of these 21 tactics, none of them involve paid advertising of any kind, right? There still is a lot of merit to paid advertising, and it's still a great growth channel with retargeting and social ads and that sort of stuff. But I think the big trend, and this is something that's been going on for a long time, but it's now just starting to really get steam, is that earned media and earned marketing, which are content production, SEO, social media marketing, PR, that sort of stuff, all those channels, those are the things that are really going to pay the highest dividends to you. So I think the biggest trend that we're seeing right now in online marketing is much more of a concern and shift towards the inbound marketing and earned marketing type of channels rather than paid specifically.
Yeah, that's great insight. And then, whether it's been your time at Moz or your time at Stride or any of the companies before that, what have you learned about growth that surprised you? You didn't think it would work that way, and it does.
So I think the most surprising thing is that that growth to me is very much like investing in startups or even in publicly traded companies. Like, you don't know which channel is going to work. And even though it may work great for some other company and some other person, it's really just taking bets and trying to find a new marketing trend before it hits the mainstream. Because what you'll notice with a lot of these is that over time they've gotten lower and lower quality as more people start doing them, right? So I think what's been surprising is just you have to be very aware of new things that are going on and being able and willing to adapt and implement them when they still are new and unproven, right? So I think it's just this constant battle of testing and analyzing and basically counting your losses and figuring out which channels are most powerful for you and focusing on those. So it's interesting.
Yeah, well, Andrew, this has been an awesome interview. One last question. I asked this to all our guests. What's the best advice you have for any startup that's trying to grow?
Gosh, that's a broad one.
I know, right? I leave it broad so you can just go anywhere with it.
I'll go with the theme from this. Pick your favorite 5 of these that you haven't done before, and just try and really invest in them. Take the time. Don't go half-assed into them. Really put your time into them and give them a real shot and see if they work. If they don't work, then move to the next 5, right? So constantly be willing to try new things and put the time and the effort in to really give the channel a real test. So I guess hopefully that's helpful.
Absolutely. That's great advice to end on. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on Growth Hacker TV.
Yeah, thank you.